but this one was never used. It's the last remaining NASA external tank in existence. NASA awarded it to LA's California Science Center, where together with the Space Shuttle Endeavour, it will become part of a full-stack shuttle display.
If you've never seen one, it's amazing. It's 20 stories tall. It allows us to talk so much about science and engineering, math, and to serve to inspire the next generation of scientists, engineers, and explorers.
DWP crews moved and cut power lines to allow the massive tank through. But unlike the Space Shuttle Endeavour 3 years ago, this parade route did not require the cutting down of any trees. Finally, after an 18-hour street cruise, ET-94 arrived at its permanent home in Exposition Park. For many here, it was a moment that will go down in history. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
Although ET-94 will be available for viewing, the public will have to wait a few more years before seeing it in a full-stack display. While a new city audit finds money could be saved by hiring more civilians at the LAPD. And as Gil Reyes reports, city streets might also be safer.
Recruit Officer Arteaga, sir. 40509, sir.
These are LAPD jobs that are not in the field. Clerical workers, equipment room managers, couriers. But a new city audit finds too many of these positions are being filled by trained officers whose skills are needed on patrol.
Filling these jobs would free up officers to do what they do best, to fight crime.
LA City Controller Ron Galperin's audit urges the city to adopt a long-term goal of hiring more civilian staff at the LAPD. A shortage has forced more than 620 officers to fill these positions. Many of them are desk jobs. That means fewer cops on the beat.
Put the pencils down to get away from the cubicles, to go out back into black and white and do what they were paid to do, what they wanted to do, and what they signed up to do. And that's to keep us all safe.
City Councilman Mitchell Englander, an LAPD reservist, says more officers on patrol are especially needed now, following upticks in crime. So far this year, violent crime is up by more than 12% from the same period last year. Controller Ron Galperin adds that the city wastes money by using trained cops to fill these jobs.
We now do have the broad support necessary to make these changes and to put more police in our neighborhoods where they work every day to keep us safe.
In downtown LA, I'm Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
Of those 620 sworn officers filling civilian jobs, more than 400 are said to be fully capable of patrolling city streets. Another international city is now closer than ever as one more airline is cleared for takeoff at LAX. And this one is taking the passenger experience to a whole new level. Rasha Goel has more.
A smooth landing for Aer Lingus, the newest airline to join the LAX flight roster. Having operated here from 1999 to 2008, Aer Lingus now returns to LAX and offers direct service from Los Angeles to Dublin, Ireland.
An aircraft and a flight and a service is a measure of the relationship between Ireland and the West Coast. And particularly here in LA, we have a very strong relationship.
Our goal for LAX is very simple. Like to deliver a modern, efficient airport with a hospitality mindset while firmly training our eyes on safety and security.
Passengers on the inaugural flight were thrilled about the new route.
They make you feel at home more than like the other airlines do.
Brilliant. Everything was fine, like Wi-Fi, food, meals, everything was fine.
And what made the flight even more exciting was that it was piloted by an all-female flight crew, something that we don't often get to see.
This is the first time in Aer Lingus that we've had 3 operational female crew working together. So that means a lot to me. It's a really big deal.
In addition to value-based pricing, Wi-Fi for the entire duration of the flight, and free stopovers in Ireland, passengers also receive advantages when it comes to customs.
That you clear U.S. customs in Ireland before you begin your transatlantic journey home, which saves you time on arrival.
Officials say the Aer Lingus flight into LAX is the longest flight for the airline's entire network, nearing about 10 hours. From LAX, I'm Rasha Goel for LA This Week.
This direct flight from Aer Lingus saves passengers between 4 and 5 hours if they had connecting flights. While the innovative plan providing free computers to families in need returns to South LA for its latest rollout. Gil Reyes has part 2 of his special report on the R-Cycle program and plans to improve it moving forward.
What you're going to do is go around the corner here.
Free computers are given away to families that need them most.
Oh, it's great. The kids are excited, and so am I.
Around 100 families living near Budlong Elementary and Dantzler Charter Schools received the giveaways, the latest to benefit from the Our Cycle LA program.
In many cases, this is their first technology that they're able to bring into their home, first piece of technology.
And you need it, right?
Yeah, it's almost impossible nowadays to be able to do anything on a day-to-day basis without it.
Our Cycle takes old City of LA computers and instead of chucking them, upgrades them for disadvantaged families. Windows 7 and virus protection included. Credit multiple entities for that, including the nonprofit group Human IT. The city hires them for computer repairs.
It's a universal need, whether you're talking about senior citizens that need access to health care or young children that need access to computer to do their homework. Technology is just a universal need in this day and age.
Instead of being thrown away and building up waste in landfills, the city's General Services Department found space in a downtown LA warehouse to store thousands of broken or unusable city computers so they can be refurbished.
An old street services storage area that we was not using, so it was great that we had the space to put them in there so they could facilitate this project.
And what a project so far. Hundreds of families from San Pedro, Baldwin Village, Koreatown, and more have entered the digital age since the pilot program launched a year ago. The city's Information Technology Agency, or ITA, led this rollout to help families bridge the digital divide.
Technology is not a nice to have anymore. It's absolutely a need to have. In fact, my daughter, where she goes to school here in LA Unified School District, she's given assignments where she's expected to watch email, to get on Schoology, submit assignments online. And without having technology in the house, it becomes very difficult just to get ahead.
We need a computer. And I have my laptop. We have an old Dell that's we probably need to turn it in to be refurbished, but this will definitely help the family.
City leaders want Our Cycle rolled out to other parts of South LA and the San Fernando Valley. Mayor Eric Garcetti wants to prioritize the hiring of the homeless and the formerly incarcerated for thousands of civil service positions, but they'll need internet to look up jobs and apply. So the city is considering free Wi-Fi in homeless encampments and more.
Creating some hotspots at schools and churches, at community-based organizations, so that these internet resources can be used actively.
We want to do them all over the district. The council president, Wesson, Price, and I, we've been talking about this for months, and so we want to do a tour of the community, giving away computers with internet access as much as we can and as fast as they can be produced.
Another plan in the works is reducing the cost of Wi-Fi for Time Warner cable customers of low income through partnerships.
Right now you can get access to the internet for $15 a month, but we'd love to drive that cost even lower. And we'd love to find really creative ways, working with public libraries and others, to be able to bring internet right to where people are in their homes. And so we'll have some new news for you coming up on that.
So I'm hopeful that we have some big giants of business that want to partner with the city of LA and make this even a bigger and a better program.
And good news for many more families. We're told the LA City Council recently approved $117,000 in the upcoming city budget to continue this program. In South LA, Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
Our Cycle plans to give away even more computers in the weeks to come in Canoga Park and at Camp Wesson Summer Camp just before the kids go home. While LA's Councilmember Nury Martinez has been singled out as a phenomenal woman, the YWCA of Greater LA recognized her at its annual awards and fundraiser. Anna Marcos has more.
All things are possible in the lives of phenomenal women.
It was an event by women, for women, inspired by an organization created for women. The YWCA of Greater LA held its annual Phenomenal Woman Awards to honor those who are a driving force in LA's corporate, government, and philanthropy worlds.
This event was put together to assimilate powerful, confident, visionary women so that we might inspire each other.
Councilmember Nuri Martinez was one of 3 recipients.
And the wonderful thing about this event is you get to highlight some of the good work that women are doing across the city, and it's also coming together to raise money for the YWCA.
But hand in hand with inspiration, the event also served to highlight some of the challenges facing women. As model and actress Kathy Ireland, the event co-chair, pointed out.
Splashed across the front page, Santa Barbara, a hub for sex trafficking. Heartbreaking that this atrocity occurs all over our world, all over our nation.
The point for many here is that if anyone can work on the challenges, it is these women, all movers and shakers in L.A., whether they've won a Phenomenal Woman Award or not. I'm Anna Marcos for L.A. This Week.
The 2 other Phenomenal Women Award recipients were Lisa Paulson, President and CEO of the Entertainment Industry Foundation, and Delilah Lanois Harris, President of SMS Transportation Services. Well, the city of LA signs off on an official plan to reduce greenhouse emissions. South LA welcomes a new affordable housing complex, and pedestrian safety gets a boost thanks to a new traffic light at a busy Highland Park intersection. All these stories in City Beat. The Los Angeles City Council unanimously approved a motion by Councilmember Paul Koretz to establish the city's official target of reducing its greenhouse gas emissions to 80% below 1990 levels by 2050, and directing city departments to create climate action plans to meet the interim goals set by Mayor Garcetti in his Sustainable City Plan. Los Angeles is already transitioning away from carbon-burning fuels and making major investments in clean energy technology. Councilmember Koretz was joined by other climate advocates at City Hall to promote his climate change plan.
The future of this great city, and frankly the future of the rest of the world, depends on our getting it right and doing it fast.
Community of Friends, a group that builds housing for low-income individuals and those living with mental illness, gathered with city leaders and the Hyde Park community recently to celebrate the groundbreaking of Silver Star Apartments, an affordable housing complex on West Boulevard in Hyde Park. Situated on a 30,000 square foot site, the project will consist of a 4-story contemporary-style apartment building with 48 one-bedroom units. The development will be a special needs community targeting veterans who are homeless and living with mental illness.
This facility will be part of bringing back our neighborhood and making our neighborhood better than we found it in.
A new traffic signal was recently installed in Council District 1 along North Figueroa and Avenue 55. Councilmember Gil Cedillo identified the funds to allow the signal to be constructed and address the critical pedestrian safety needs along this heavily used pedestrian and transit corridor. Cedillo said safety is a top priority.
There is nothing more important than public safety. It's why we have government.
For more than 100 years, the Orthopedic Institute for Children has been dedicated to serving young patients across Los Angeles. LA Mayor Eric Garcetti joined Institute officials recently to celebrate a major step forward. Rich Samuels has more.
At the Orthopedic Institute, local children tried out the playground, a symbol of an optimistic future for young patients treated here every day. Doctors, patients, and L.A. Mayor Eric Garcetti recently celebrated a great step forward for the Institute, L.A.'s first ambulatory surgery center designed and built exclusively for children. CEO Dr. Anthony Scaduto couldn't wait to show it off.
This room is specifically designed to do orthopedic surgery. It would be surgery that is state-of-the-art. There's special design features to this operating room that allows us to treat many of our children on an outpatient basis.
We've got 6 pre-op, post-op rooms to use, and the last room also is a procedure room, so we can do things like apply casts and do minor procedures.
I don't know if I've been in a medical facility that looks so gorgeous and that is designed with both the patients and the doctors and the way that they serve in mind.
And thanks to the city of Los Angeles, the surgery center became a reality in record time.
Normally, the state's health planning agency oversees construction of this kind But this center is one of the first healthcare projects in California that was completely overseen at the municipal level.
What did municipal oversight mean? The permitting process, for example, which can take as long as 11 months, was reduced to just 5. The Orthopedic Institute for Children treats a number of orthopedic specialties, ranging from muscular dystrophy and club foot to sports injuries, common fractures, and hand trauma. With 13,000 square feet of new space, there's plenty of room to meet the demand. This is Rich Samuels for LA This Week.
More than 2 million children have been treated by the Institute since 1911. Well, it's a top honor by one of the top Democratic clubs in California. Mayor Eric Garcetti was one of several leaders honored by the Stonewall Democratic Club. Anna Marcos has more on how the mayor's work in the LGBT community earned him the award.
They're called the Stoney Awards, a sort of Humanitarian of the Year award for LGBT issues. And this year, our own Mayor Eric Garcetti has clinched one of them as Elected Official of the Year. The reason, his creation of a council of transgender community leaders to help advise the city on transgender issues.
We don't have to read about history of the LGBTQ movement in other places. It's right here. This is the fulcrum. This is Selma, Alabama.
The Stonewall Democratic Club has become a force to be reckoned with in politics. It focuses on LGBT and women's rights, but also helps lead the way on all democratic issues of equality and justice.
We will also continue to hold our elected representatives accountable on environmental issues, affordable and accessible housing, healthcare access, immigration reform, and fair wages, because all of those things are LGBTQI issues.
What a hell of a year to be a Democrat, and a lesbian, and a feminist, and a progressive.
Other Stoney Awards went to L.A. County Assessor Jeffrey Prang, chosen as Public Official of the Year, and Rabbi Denise Egger, who took the Sheila Kuehl Trailblazer Award.
I've served our community, the LGBTQ Jewish community, and our larger LGBTQ community for nearly 30 years now. From the depths of the AIDS crisis to the heights of marriage equality and beyond.
And this year, the death of a popular council member has created a new award, the Bill Rosendahl Courage Award, which went to its namesake, the late council member Bill Rosendahl, and LA's first openly gay council member.
I don't feel like he's gone. I still feel his warmth. I still feel his encouragement.
Future Bill Rosendahl Awards will be given to those who bravely speak their minds on LGBT and progressive values. But then it seems all of the honorees have done just that. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
The final Stoney Award went to Jane Wishin, known for her work on AIDS and LGBT issues. Well, enjoy a classic movie in a historic theater, take in a film fest that's gone to the dogs, and celebrate LA's rich cultural diversity during the Lummis Day Festival. All this in this week's Things to Do. This year marks the LA Conservancy's 30th season of classic films in historic theaters. To commemorate the occasion, the organization is going back to where it all began, Broadway's iconic movie palaces. With 9 screenings and lots of interesting events to go with them, including special backstage tours, panel discussions, and post-show film trivia at Clifton's, it's the place to be for the classic film buff. This year's lineup includes vintage crowd pleasers like To Kill a Mockingbird, Singin' in the Rain, and Some Like It Hot. Check it out at Orpheum Theater, located at 842 South Broadway. For more, visit laconservancy.org. The Dog Film Festival seeks to educate about adoption, pet wellness issues, and philosophical aspects of pets in our lives. The festival is a unique way of honoring dogs as true family members by bringing together like-minded people to experience global filmmakers' celebration of the human-canine bond. The event showcases films that inspire, educate, and entertain, and are appropriate for all members of the human family. Come pay tribute to our favorite furry friends on Sunday, June 5th at The Crest, located at 1262 Westwood Boulevard in Westwood. See more at dogfilmfestival.com. This weekend, you can enjoy some fun at the Lummis Day Festival. Lummis Day is named after Charles Fletcher Lummis, who was the first city editor of the Los Angeles Times and founded the Southwest Museum, or the first museum in Los Angeles. This festival celebrates the art, history, and ethnic diversity in Los Angeles and is a cultural event that is community-oriented. The event takes place June 3rd through the 5th at York Park at Avenue 50 and at the Southwest Museum, featuring art, crafts, vendors, food trucks, poetry, and musical performances. For more, visit lummisday.org. And that's a look at some things to do. Well, that's going to do it for this edition. I'm Yana Kay, and from all of us here at LA This Week, thanks for joining us. A reminder that you can catch us online at lacityview.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
Welcome to Council Minute. I'm Council Member Joe Buscaino of the 15th Council District, and I want to invite you all to the San Pedro Shred Festival of Skate 2016, back for its 4th year on Sunday, June 5th at 9:30 a.m. at Lookout Point Park in San Pedro. The San Pedro Shred Festival of Skate is the first ever sanctioned skateboarding festival in the greater Los Angeles area, encompassing a wide range of skateboarding disciplines, including downhill, street, and transition. This year, the San Pedro Shred Festival of Skate will include a free ride side, a street skate course, a kids street skate course, a bunch of food, music, and a lot more. For more information or to register for the event, please visit sanpedroshredfest.com. That's sanpedroshredfest.com. Hope to see you there.
Hi, my name's Louie and I'm at Pan Pacific Park, and you're watching LA City View 35. It's our city, it's our channel.
Good morning. It is Tuesday, May 31st. Welcome to the Los Angeles City Council. This council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. Madam Clerk, we have a quorum. Could you please call the roll?
Blumenfield, Bonin, Buscaino, Cedillo, Englander, Fuentes, Heristasen, Weezer, Koretz, Krikorian, Martinez, O'Farrell, Price, Rue, Wesson. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Martinez moves, Koretz seconds. Next.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Englander moves, Price seconds. That brings us where?
Mr. President, today is Tuesday, and it's time for the flag salute.
If I can ask Mr. Blumenfield if he would lead us today in our flag salute.
Second time.
All please rise.
Place your hand over your heart, please. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Blumenfield. Madam Clerk, why don't we go through the agenda?
Item 1 is an item notice for public hearing.
Cards?
Yes, there are cards.
Okay, continue.
Items 2 through 17 are items for which public hearings have been held. There is a request to continue item 17 to Friday, June 3rd.
Okay, so without objection, that will be the order. Specials members. Let's prepare to vote on those agenda items. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. I thought we continued that to Friday. Okay, let's start. Scratch that. Let's start all over again. Let's prepare to vote on those items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Continue, Madam Clerk.
And for the record, the ordinances for items 2, 3, and 4 will be held over 1 week unless reconsidered with 12 members present.
Okay, thank you. And if we get to 12, and I'm optimistic we may, let me know immediately and we'll reconsider those items. So if we could move forward, move on.
Items 18 through 23 are items for which public hearings have not been held. No action is required on item 23, and 10 votes are required for consideration of the other items.
Okay, so without objection, those items are now before this body. Do we have cards?
There are cards on all items.
Okay, so we'll hold those items. That brings us where?
Mr. President, that takes council back to presentations, items called special or general public comment.
Okay. Okay, why don't we go to item 18, Mr. Walsh, item 18. Mr. John Walsh, item 18.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org or J. Walsh Confidential, tweeting at Hollywood Dams. And this is 18. This concerns rent escrow account program. Again, I love getting up here and praising you. And as far as renters are concerned and lighting in our neighborhoods, everything is great. And almost as good as when Bradley was in. And this is removing various properties from rent escrow. Remember, if your building is, your rental unit is not up to code, you go and file with the city. And if the landlord doesn't bring it up to code, then the landlord doesn't get your rent anymore. The city gets it till he fixes it. And you see how damn fast that landlord moves. HollywoodHighlands.org. 1 minute used.
Thank you. Okay, let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Let's go to item 1. Mr. Walsh. Follow. Mr. Walsh passes. Mr. Sachs, item 1.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Arnold Sachs. And the reason I held this item actually is, again, the legalese language that you use here. It's offer to dedicate an easement for sidewalk purposes. And yet in several of your items on different agendas, you many times have mentioned this as a right-of-way. And the difference would be the legalese involved, the right-of-way for public to walk through versus a sidewalk, which is not disclosed as an item that's in your legalese. As far as this would be continuing the effort of the cities to repair sidewalks, you're talking about repairing sidewalks. You're not talking about right-of-way. The difference is negligible to the public's ear. But when you get into court and you decide something that happens on a trip and fall, use the right language.
Okay, let us prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, let's go to item 23. Mr. Walsh, item 23. Followed by Mr. Previn. Wait, it's my understanding. Hold on, Mr. Walsh. So, wait, hold on. In fact, I'm going to have the city attorney explain what's happening with 23. So we will not be taking public comment on that. I don't think anything is going on. So, Mr. City Attorney, if you would explain that.
Yes. The mayor hasn't vetoed anything. The item is not ripe, and it's not being considered now. That's it.
Okay, so we'll continue.
No action is being taken on the item.
Okay, so we're not even going to have a conversation, meaning we won't be taking cards. Okay, Mr. Englander, are you ready to proceed with your presentation?
How are you? How you doing, Professor? Hi.
Chen. Thank you so much for this.
Professor, you're going to be saying a few words.
Yes.
Okay, good. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. President, colleagues. As we close out the month of May for Asian Pacific Islander American Heritage Month, I wanted to congratulate, first and foremost, Councilmember Ryu for two great celebrations. The Pacific Bridge Concert in Taste LA, where thousands of people actually showed up to celebrate APAM. And before we close out this month, I also wanted to include the Asian American Studies Department of California State University Northridge in their celebration as they celebrate their 25th anniversary of their founding. The Asian American Studies Department was actually formed out of a grassroots campus movement to acknowledge the many contributions of Asian Americans and to empower students to be positive agents of change in the community. The faculty, both past and present, are dedicated to the success of their students, connecting students to the greater community of academics, volunteerism, activism, and getting engaged in their community. Some students succeed to teach, and others work with local nonprofits, and others go on to business of making change, such as C.J. Barina, the owner and founder of Collective Lifestyles, where I've actually had the pleasure to visit as well, and he's the recipient of DCA's Arts Activation Grant through fashion, music, and art. CJ is actually transforming his local community, our community, and inspired by the studies and what he has learned and bringing that to the community from CSUN. Also joining us today, we have Professors Edith Chen, Tomo Hattori, I got that right? Okay. And Alan Aquino and Tae Han Kim. Our also recent alums, Angelo and Lorenzo Mutaya and Max Reyes from CSUN's Governmental Affairs. I didn't see Max. Is he here? There he is in the back. Let's give them a big round of applause. So I want to thank them for engaging, not only in our office and really working with the community, but making sure the culture is presented. And we actually worked very closely along Reseda Boulevard to make sure that we captured that essence in our great street, the first great street that was done here in Los Angeles as well. And want to thank my staff who's been working very, very closely with all of them. And on behalf of all of us, we'd like to present you with a certificate of appreciation to the American Studies and Services Department at Cal State Northridge. And let's give them all a big round of applause. And I'd like to ask Professor Chen to come up and say a few words as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Edith Chen, one of the faculty members of the Asian American Studies Department at Cal State University Northridge. On behalf of the department, my colleagues, students, and alumni, we are honored here today to accept the proclamation that commemorates our 25th anniversary. I especially want to thank Semi Park, Legislative Deputy, for Mitchell Englander, and for reaching out to the department to arrange for this proclamation. Not too long ago in Los Angeles history, Asian American immigrants were not allowed to naturalize, become citizens, vote, to testify in court, let alone be recognized for their contributions to the historical, economic, political, and cultural development in California and the nation. In the late 1960s, students, faculty, and community fought to establish the discipline of ethnic studies and Asian American studies for a curriculum that reflected their experiences, insights, and contributions. Currently, we are 15% of the LA County population and the fastest growing racial and ethnic group in California and the nation. Asian American Studies is a study of Asians and Pacific Islanders in the U.S. from an interdisciplinary perspective that includes history, sociology, political science, urban planning, education, literature, and the arts. While today, Asian Americans continue to struggle to claim their place as real Americans, I'm honored and moved to accept this proclamation by the LA City Council, which affirms what we do. It is dedicated to the academic and community-based goals, including promoting learning and intellectual growth, enhancing and empowering Asian Pacific Islander communities at the local, national, and international level. Thank you all to the LA City Council members for affirming what we do and recognizing the value of CSUN's Asian American Studies Department.
Well done. Thank you. Thank you. We'll get in tight. We'll go in the back for some photos as well. But thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues. We're going to go in the back for some photos.
We have over 12 members. Madam Clerk, why don't we vote on reconsideration of, I think we have 3 items. If you could read those items, we'll vote on reconsideration, then actually vote on the items themselves.
Correct, and those are items 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, so the first vote will be for reconsideration. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, now we'll vote on the items themselves. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, we're going to now move to item 19. Item 19, if we could have Mr. Gus, Mr. Jenkins, and Mr. Walsh. Yes, sir.
Good morning. I was speaking about this and other issues for almost an hour on KFI on Sunday. This is about as vapid and vacuous an idea that I've seen in a long time in a place that is known for them. Has the city council an understanding of the difference between a pimp who forces a minor into prostitution and a boyfriend that forces a minor into prostitution? You're trying to vacate convictions for non-violent crimes of people who are victims of human trafficking. So if somebody was selling drugs while they were a victim of human trafficking, you want to vacate drug convictions, right? If somebody stole from an elderly person while being a victim of trafficking, you want to vacate convictions for stealing from old people, right? If the victim of trafficking spray paints a veterans memorial in Venice while they're a victim of human trafficking, this city council wants to vacate that conviction? If somebody takes a crap in public while they're a victim of human trafficking, you want to be okay with vacating a conviction for taking a crap in your district, right? If they pick the pocket of a minor or an elderly person or your family because they're a victim of human trafficking, you are going to vacate that conviction? Let's see where you guys stand. Why don't you today pass a law vacating all of those fines, all of those convictions for everybody who has already been convicted of such a crime in the city of Los Angeles? Let's see if you will stand by your word.
Thank you. So Mr. Prentice, followed by Mr. Walsh.
Prentice Jenkins, published a City Life newsletter, activist since 1991. I'm in favor of vacating convictions of nonviolent crimes committed while victims of human trafficking, but only if they're under 18. Anyone over 18 should be convicted. We're talking about children, yes. They're nonviolent crimes committed while being human trafficking should be vacated. I'm a young man who came up in a community who saw, when I saw human trafficking, I saw the pimps and the prostitutes across the street as a 13-year-old. I saw the white men driving up in their cars, picking up the black prostitutes, right, and putting them in their cars. The ones from the suburbs, folks that look like you all, had nice little suits on, nice cars. Never seen cars like that in my life in my neighborhood. But there they were, Mercedes-Benz, Audis, things like that. Black people didn't drive those cars. And the funny thing is, every time I see an In-N-Out burger, guess what I see? I see those white men driving up in those cars. They stopped. There was a car, 15 cars. There's a line of 15 cars. It looked like In-N-Out burger. They would drive up, pick up the prostitute, take her, do what they did, bring her back, pimps her over on the side. They bring her back, drop her off, go back home to the suburbs. And they were all white men, wealthy, well-to-do, and all the prostitutes were black, and all the pimps were black over there. So I understand human trafficking, but I'm not. You cannot vacate people's nonviolent crimes if they're over 18. You can vacate children's, but I urge you, do not vacate people's crimes if they're over 18, because people over 18 are considered adults.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh, followed by Mr. Hunt, followed by Ms. Ramirez.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. Yeah, over 18. Yeah, they've been prostitutes, have been in prostitution for 7 or 8 years, since they were 10 or 11. And I just want you to know, and I'm talking as a white man, I will give you $1,000 for every white teenage prostitute you can find in this city. They are all minorities. And why are they all minorities? They're minorities because they the cops will not arrest a white girl. It looks like their little daughter. So there's a deal in this city. I can take you right now out and show you them.
Speaking to the mic.
Prostitutes are out there right now with their Johns. And I'm telling you right now, these people up here are vomitous scum for allowing this flourishes like any other city in America. And don't ever forget who's on the bottom. Who's on the bottom? Black people.
Mr. Hunt, followed by Ms. Ramirez.
The support or non-support. The Red Chief Hunt on the record. Human trafficking. Nonviolent crime, which humans are being trafficked, and applying to vacating this whole ordinance. Here's what's going to happen, because you guys are all Nimrods. You guys are all going to vote yes on this because you guys have no other choice, because you guys been programmed. So I want to go ahead and get this over with and vote yes on it.
Ms. Ramirez? Ms. Ramirez passes. Let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Mr. Koretz, you ready for your presentation?
Everyone wants to stand right behind the council members here. Well, good morning. I'm here with my esteemed colleague, Mr. Rue, and Assistant General Manager James Don from the Department of Aging. We're here to proclaim May as Older Americans Month. At this time, we recognize older Americans for their invaluable contributions to Los Angeles and our nation. Older Americans Month was established by President John F. Kennedy in 1963. This year, we also celebrate the 51st anniversary of the Older Americans Act, which was signed by President Lyndon Johnson in 1965. This act was the first federal initiative aimed at providing comprehensive services for older adults. The act remains absolutely essential to our communities and people across the country. Recently, Congress has reauthorized this legislation, but has not yet funded it to reflect the current needs of our citizens. It's our hope that they'll do that soon. It's been a great pleasure of mine to work with the Department of Aging and many of our local activists as we battle each issue facing our older adults. Those issues include housing, homeless seniors, older adult education, senior fraud and abuse, senior hunger, and transportation, just to name a few. Also, our city has been deeply affected by the budget cuts that came from the federal level, especially the federal sequester, which started in 2013. This cut in funding would have had a huge impact to our senior meals program. We were looking at a cut of an approximate $2 million and over 2,000 seniors cut from that program. We chose not to just stand idly by and wait for more funding, and instead put our own funding into the program so that not one senior would be cut. We've done so every year, and this is our fourth straight year having to cover these cuts. I'd like to recognize those on the Budget and Finance Committee, including our chair, Paul Krikorian, for helping to make that happen, and Council President Herb Wesson for his leadership as well. During this past 12 months, we've made great strides in providing funding for many programs and services, and we've worked at reprioritizing policies to make sure seniors are at the table. These include newly added staff for the Age-Friendly Cities Initiative and Senior Safety and Community Education Unit. Exploring options for a sustainable long-term funding plan for the Evidence-Based Wellness Program. Introducing a motion asking that our comprehensive homeless strategy include seniors as a priority given the unique needs they face. Introducing motions asking the city to review and report back on strategies to help address problems with evictions and rent control. And so we've accomplished a lot in the last year. Now I'd like to introduce my colleague on the City Council, David Rue, who is chair of the Mental Health and Education Committee.
Thank you, Councilmember Koretz. And good morning, Council President, Council members. As we close on May is also Older Americans Month. And as we close, we want to celebrate and highlight the lasting contributions and issues faced by older adult Americans in our community. The unique population is expected to grow dramatically in the coming years. In LA County, the number of adults 65 and over is projected to nearly double to more than 2.1 million by 2030, whereas the city's 500,000 residents aged 60 and older is expected to increase by 50%. We must prepare for these changes and be committed to becoming a more age-friendly city, one that carefully considers the needs of older Americans in the planning of programs, crafting of policies, and building of infrastructure. Under the leadership of our mayor and colleagues like Councilmember Paul Koretz and our network of partners including AARP and the World Health Organization, the city recently launched Purposeful Aging LA to thoroughly assess the needs of this growing population and increase the city and the county's coordination and resources and to expand civic engagement. Having been raised by my grandmother, it's important that the city continues to enact policies like transportation, housing, employment, and emergency preparedness that will support residents during this aging process. Our new initiative will ultimately provide greater access to care, services, and support that will enable older Americans to continue to live in the places they call home. I look forward to the city's age-friendly future to better serve our older adult population. Thank you, Council President.
Now we'd like to hear from the Department of Aging.
Good morning, everybody. James Don, Assistant General Manager for the Department of Aging. On behalf of the department, I want to thank both Councilmember Koretz and Councilmember Rue for this resolution in recognizing Older Americans Month, but also in honoring all the contributions of older Americans in the city of Los Angeles. It's important for us to keep in mind their contributions and sacrifices because of the values they teach us will reflect upon what type of society that we are. There was a recent article in the LA Times that stated that baby boomers are no longer the largest generation. It's now the millennial generation. So basically, whatever solutions that we come up with to serve seniors will have a lasting impact on the next generation. So I think there's a lot to learn. I think the value of seniors, such as the members behind me from the Council on Aging, are critical for us. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you to everyone here for joining us, proclaiming May as Older Americans Month. And in closing, I want to say we're joined by many in the audience who work for companies and nonprofit organizations here locally to provide critical services and programs. I won't name them all because there's too many to call out, but let's take a moment to give them a big round of applause. And now if we could present this commendation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Just give them one more round of applause. Thank you. Let's move to item 20, Mr. Previn. Item 20, Mr. Eric Previn, followed by Mr. Gus, followed by Mr. Jenkins. Please come forward.
Thank you, Council President Wesson. It is Eric Previn from CD2, and there's a small session going on over there, but that's fine. Thank you to Council Member Martinez and Harris Dawson for this one. This is to provide a kind of an immunity to youth, minors who've been taken, will be taken into protective custody and not arrested. This is a kind of a diversion opportunity, and it's a proposal to support Santiago Lu, who have come up with some language about that, which I've not reviewed directly, but I've definitely reviewed that type of thing before, and I am a big supporter, frankly, of diverting folks like this from the criminal justice system. And the concern that I have, and Mr. Harris Dawson and those who have looked at the Department of Children and Family Services over at the county level know it is a mixed bag, obviously, because we desperately appreciate the work they're doing to protect youth. But we are also concerned that sometimes the system results in placements that are controversial, and of course there's something called group homes. Here's the big problem. Most of the prostitution that we are fighting on a regular basis, especially among minors, is not directly related to, but directly entwined with the foster care system. And so we really do need this body to stand up strong and tall and advocate for the kinds of transparent behaviors that I noticed there's another item on the agenda where we're trying to get the labor code adjusted to prevent misconduct from coming out for a workers' file. But we have to find a way, sir, across many of these departments, especially the children workers, to sort out the bad actors and to improve the quality of service, because these children are victims, as we've heard before, and these are not people who should be blamed.
Thank you. So if I can get Mr. Gus, followed by Mr. Jenkins, followed by Ms. Ramirez, followed by Mr. Sachs. Mr. Gus.
Yeah, Daniel Gus. I spent almost an hour on Sunday on KFI talking about this and related subjects. This city has its head up its ass when it comes to child prostitution. This is a photo sent to Nuri Martinez as soon as she came into office. Pregnant, minor, prostitute, had a baby in the Sepulveda Basin. Nuri Martinez didn't do anything about it then. Here, pregnant, child, prostitute, had a baby in the Sepulveda Basin. Nuri Martinez didn't do anything about it then. How come City Council talks about these position statements on what happens in Sacramento when you don't even clean up your own yard? These subjects here write themselves, and I think my next City Watch LA article is going to be about this hypocrisy, where you can hand them proof of child prostitutes in the council member's own district who have babies in the Sepulveda Basin along Sepulveda Boulevard, and the councilwoman doesn't do anything about cleaning it up in her own district, but we're going to have a position statement on it when it comes to Sacramento. And how about the council stand up, any of you, especially Ms. Martinez or Mr. Harris Dawson, and tell us whether or not this bill clarifies the difference between a minor and an emancipated minor. If you're going to issue a support statement, show us that you have read the bill. Tell the people watching right now whether or not it articulates. See if Martinez or Harris Dawson actually show us that they know what they're talking about. Tell us if the bill differentiates between minors and emancipated minors. Otherwise, you're just coming here, collecting a paycheck, and voting without knowing what you're talking about. A challenge. Stand up and tell us.
Thank you. So if I can get Mr. Jenkins, Ms. Ramirez, and Mr. Sachs, please come forward.
Prentice Jenkins, publisher of City Life newsletter, activist since 1991. I am absolutely in favor of granting immunity to minors who are forced into prostitution. The one thing you have to understand about prostitution is it wouldn't exist without the Johns. And if you want to know what a John looks like, I want every woman to take a look at every man in this building, including myself. I'm not a John, but this is what we all look like. This is what Johns look like who purchase prostitutes. They're white, black, Asian, Latino. They're your husbands, your fathers, your brothers, your uncles, your grandfathers, your great-grandfathers. That's who patronizes prostitution. So, and I remember there was a report, I believe it was 48 Hours. They was sitting down talking to a prostitute in New York on a bench. And the reporter asked, what's your customer base? And she said, well, they're police, they're firemen. She said they're businessmen. She said they're all types of men. He said, wait a minute, you're only 12 years old. She said, yeah. She said doctors and lawyers. She said they seem to get more excited when they hear I'm 12 years old. That is prostitution. I remember when I saw those pimps making all that money that time. They were counting that money out. First thing I thought, dang, I didn't think about being an astronaut. I thought about being a pimp. I could pimp like that. I could pimp hoes like that. Of course I could. When I saw them counting that money on the other side of the street, they were counting big money too. So when youngsters like me at 13 years old see a pimp counting that type of money, guess what's the first thing they think? I need to do that too.
Ms. Ramirez passes. Mr. Sachs.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Arnold Sachs. And why I held this item is towards the bottom of this item on your agenda. It requires require the development of a coordinated plan to deliver comprehensive care and protect all victims of human trafficking. So I'm somewhat reminded of the mayor's homeless plan to help the homeless without an adequate source of funding. Because it doesn't mention how much this coordinated plan, which hasn't been developed, is going to cost. So there's no funding involved. In addition, by putting these children into custody, it then becomes a county program. Have you looked at some of the county programs regarding DCFS? That's the Department of Children and Family Services. If it was a bond, they'd get a 4F. So you're not addressing the county programs regarding custody of children. You're not addressing the funding for the development of this coordinated plan. And by the way, speaking of coordinated plans and government officials is an oxymoron. In addition, with all the legislative people that are sitting around this horseshoe, have served in the legislature, have been speakers of the House, how come it's taken all this time to recognize child prostitution and the problems that it causes to be heard by the government? How come? There's got to be 7 representatives who had served in the state legislation. A couple of speakers have been in the city council and mayor, and yet 10 years later, you're finally taking action. So what has been on your agenda that has caused such a delay for this to be heard?
Let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Mr. Previn, we're going to move to item 21. Mr. Previn, Mr. Walsh, Mr. Gus. Item 21. Item 21.
Thank you, sir. I'm just going to take 60 seconds, and I'll speak with Mr. Falba later about this draconian system. Yes, item 21 is another one from the great Campos. It's AB 1595. Campos represents a district. Now, this one is an important one because people who know are aware that sex trafficking is about people fleeing sometimes, and mass transportation is a venue and a place where they tend to wind up. So this is a very good idea to train employees of mass transit to be sensitive, to be able to detect, pick out, and assist in hopefully rescuing, I assume, individuals who are getting caught up in that system who may be identified in a mass transit setting. So I am very, very supportive of this. And I'm also, 9 seconds left, I'm very, very supportive of training all government employees to be sensitive to finding out how we can be most effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Daniel Gus passes on this item. Mr. Walsh, followed by Mr. Sachs.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, J. Walsh Confidential. Require employees to provide mass transportation to train employees on recognizing and reporting human trafficking. You'd have to be born in the Braille Institute not to see it. It's all over. I can take you right now down to the subway, and you can see the prostitutes, and they're paying off. Let me tell you, there's never been crime since Alexandria 3,000 years ago on the street that the enforcement authorities haven't been paid off. And the buck starts here. I'm telling you right now, I just want everybody in America to know that if you're interested, and I'm exempting local people, if you're interested in child prostitutes, come here. You'll find them all over the place, and the cops are looking the other way. They're beating up black people instead. And remember, if you're interested in white prostitutes, you'll have to go to the Middle East. That's the only place you can find white prostitutes, if you consider Syrians white people. Here in LA, and we're going to have, what will the training cost? What kind of training is this? This is an issue you have had absolutely nothing to do with, because you know that the prostitutes, and incidentally, all these black pimps, do you think they run things? Blacks don't run crap in this city. They pay off to the man, and the man is white. And white people are the people who control prostitution, and the blacks are their punk-ass people. And everybody knows it, and I want to see one black person come up to me and say that blacks are responsible for prostitution, not white people. They all know. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Mr. Sachs, followed by Ms. Ramirez. Mr. Sachs.
Yes, thank you again, Arnold Sachs. And I would say about this state legislative program, why limit yourself to people that are involved in providing mass transportation, the employees that provide mass transportation? Why not include the people that actually build the mass transportation network, the union workers that, because essentially they are, in a sense, public employees. They're being paid with public funds to build these network of transit programs. So you should require the unions and or the contractors that hire the workers that the unions send for the jobs to also go through this planning and training to recognize sex trafficking. They run into them all the time also. And you should not limit them because they are getting, in fact, public funds to do this, that they should be as responsible to learn about sex trafficking as any employee of a transit agency is, or you're requiring to. And it would widen the appeal or widen the knowledge that people would come to understand how insidious sex trafficking is. But as we heard earlier, or I said earlier, you've had people in the legislature who sitting here around city council have failed to act. Now you're going to pass the buck on to employees. Yeah, that's right, they do run into them, but there should be more people included.
Ms. Ramirez, okay. Let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's now go to item 22. Mr. Previn, Mr. Gus, Mr. Walsh, please come forward on item 22.
Thank you, sir. It is Eric Previn from CD2. And here again, Campos. This is for AB 1676. It is Martinez and the Great Bonin seeking support from the board to support a very nice idea for gender pay equity. Let me first simply state, as a member of the public, I am a vigorous defender of gender pay equity. I have a daughter Anyone who has a daughter, Mr. Englander or others, knows that you want your daughter to be treated fairly and equitably, that any job they apply for should be considered at the same salary, that if the job is for $100,000, it should be for $100,000 for man, woman, or otherwise. And frankly, anything less is completely intolerable. But here we have a proposal to look at the labor code, to have a look-see at past salaries of all of employees, with I think an idea that if you were to look at my daughter's salary, she was only making $60,000. So the employer might say, we can probably get her. Krikorian would say, we could probably get her for 75. Now, she should get 100. Okay, so I'm very, very torn because my open desire to have all these records exposed and fair wants it to be shown, but I could see how there could be a discrimination against a person who has a lower salary in the past, a woman, for example. So my proposal would be to find another mechanism, a mechanism that requires that you may, in fact, if you are paid less for the same job, the gap must be closed. There must be some device, because the idea that we're going to use the labor code to shut down windows on bad teachers, on bad DCFS workers, on bad cops, on bad anything is a big mistake. Because nationwide and in multiple arenas, we need to be able to sort out bad actors in any setting, including councils. So I just would urge this body to look closely to see if this is really the best idea to block visibility of any kind on records. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gus, followed by Mr. Walsh, followed by Ms. Ramirez.
Council members, just any council member, please show us if you come from the private sector or if you've ever made a payroll. Anybody? Mr. Harris Dawson, Mr. Englander, Mr. Wesson, Ms. Martinez? Anybody from the private sector? Not one of them. I have a master's degree in business, and you are dropping the ball on this. People get higher salaries because they won their boss a contract, because they did a great job, because they saved their boss money, because of their loyalty to their employer. And there's so many qualitative and quantitative factors that as government hacks, you guys aren't getting. This is why businesses are leaving Los Angeles. Toyota is leaving Torrance and going to Texas because legislators like you don't take into consideration the other factors that go into this. And tell us right now, council members, you ask salary history. You want to pass this? Right now, City of Los Angeles, waive this right now. Show us that the rules apply to you like they apply to the private sector.
Thank you, Mr. Gus. Mr. Walsh, followed by Ms. Ramirez, followed by Mr. Jenkins.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. I want everybody here to listen because this pertains to you. Establishing the city's position which would encourage gender pay equity by forbidding employees from seeking job candidates' salary histories. Wait a second. Then how will the businesses decide? They can't decide on salary history. Maybe they'll decide on who they get a blowjob from. That's man or woman.
Stay on the subject.
I'm telling you, it is not. Gender pay, the word gender means sex. I want to know, prohibiting employees from seeking job candidates' salary histories. How dare you say I can't tell someone my salary history? So then you can hire your friend, and your friend can suck you off.
Ms. Ramirez, Mr. Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins.
Prentice Jenkins, publisher City Life newsletter, activist since 1991. I can't believe this is on the agenda. It's still on the agenda. Gender pay equity. Gender pay equity. We're still not paying women the same as we pay men. And it's 2016. That's outrageous. I mean, you know, if all we have to do is determine if this was your mother, would you want her to be paid the same as a man? Right? This is the most ridiculous thing. So what you're saying is you will pay a person dressed up. If a man dresses up like a woman, that's the only way a woman can get paid equal to a man. Because she has she's a clam instead of a hot dog. You pay clams the same. You won't pay clams the same way, but you will pay hot dogs if a man dresses up like a woman.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, Madam Clerk, I'm going to go to general public comment at this point. If I can get Mr. Sachs. Mr. Sachs, come on. Mr. Walsh. Mr. Gus.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Arnold Sachs. And I'd like to thank you actually for taking some action regarding some of the people that come up here in the clown outfits that they show off on. They seem to think that, yes, they have the right as the First Amendment to speak and say what they want. Well, you can speak and say what you want, but to degrade other people's nationality or the institutes, it would be too bad that some of them didn't live through the 40s and the 50s and the 60s where Nazism and racism was rampant. They should be sent back, and they should be sent to some of those areas. It's unfortunate, though, because what they do and how they act makes you actually look like the good people, like you're the stars of the show. And they take away from people's efforts to want to sit and watch the program to hear some insight into some of the actual problems that the city faces.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Walsh, Mr. Gus, Mr. Hunt.
John Walsh, J. Walsh Confidential. Anybody but Englander for supervisor. You have that ballot. You may have the mail-in ballot. Vote now. Vote. Anybody but Englander for supervisor. He is despicable. And as far as Nury Martinez, as she said some things about me, I just want you to realize that Nury Martinez started a fire. She said she doesn't feel safe here. She started a fire here at City Hall in her office from candles, and the entire building was evacuated. And if you want to read about it, the December 16, 2014 LA Times, smoke from Nury Martinez's office triggers City Hall fire. So I feel kind of scary when I'm up here because I don't know what kind of fires she's starting next. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Mr. Gus, Mr. Hunt, Mr. Previn.
Council members, can somebody please get Mayor Garcetti some emotional counseling? The mayor, as recently as Sunday, is still tweeting about the Super Bowl coming to Los Angeles. It is not coming to Los Angeles. You guys missed that. The mayor is sending these pathetic videos where he's telling anybody who will listen, he's like, hey, you guys want to hear some great news? We got the Super Bowl in 2021. No, you didn't. Cooked books or not, it's going to Inglewood with the team, with $1 billion stadium, and all of the tax revenue that goes with it. Some will come to the city of Los Angeles, some will go to Santa Monica. But somebody please close down Mayor Garcetti's Twitter account, because for some reason, I have to wonder, is he trying to get Hillary Clinton to recognize, look what I did, even though I really didn't do it? He's not going to be HUD secretary.
Thank you. Mr. Hunt, followed by Mr. Previn. Ms. Ramirez. Yes.
I want to trigger this off. The Red Chief Hunt. I looked at this paper. It says Bakewell leads coalition in demand for justice for Herb Weston. Well, if Herb Weston had respect for the First Amendment, this shit wouldn't be happening. And let me tell you why. Because the buck stopped right here. Danny Bakewell ain't down here. Mr. Hunt is down here. If I say this shit stop, this shit stops. Our forefathers wrote the First Amendment. Creative drawing is not a crime. Get it together. Steve Rhodey came out and so creative drawing is not a crime. Now, I'm not going to let nobody hurt nobody because I'm down here. And that's first and foremost. All this bullshit, these people ain't down here. Herb Weston, ain't nobody going to fuck with you. I'm here. This is bullshit. He's an activist. Let it go. If you follow the First Amendment, you wouldn't have this problem. We're not calling you a nigga because you're a nigga.
Mr. Previn, Miss Ramirez, Mr. Jenkins.
Thank you, sir. It is Eric Previn from CD2. It was my understanding that the mayor had until June 2nd, and that's what it says on item number 23 today, case file 16-0600. I thought he had until June 2nd to issue a veto if he were interested. Now, I think we know that technically he's probably not going to, but since he has until June 2nd, it was my understanding, and the reason why I came down here this morning was to give a request in that space. But now Mr. Falble, who is obviously an excellent strategy guy and a very good legal scholar, but we have fallen on different sides of this issue regarding agendizing something before an agency, city council like this, and then simply deciding, oh, on second thought, since the mayor hasn't acted in the back room, we're not going to take comment. I vigorously disagree, sir. I don't know where he got that idea or if it's his area to, if he can just decide that his interpretation will prevail. This reminds me of the neighborhood council approach. I don't know. I would question that, sir, and I can only simply say that the public would love to address the mayor's veto or the
Ms. Ramirez, Mr. Jenkins, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe the Russian President Vladimir Putin when he said that the ISIS is a formation of the FBI. Yes, ISIS, ISIL, Hezbollah, and the nosy, jealous, racist, hate-monger, wetbacks, come caca, chango, Latino, gangbanging, violent pussies and pigs and thieves are all the FBI and CIA formation of domestic terrorism. Covert harassment and surveillance against legal law-abiding citizens trying to shut us up here in America, the land of the free. In my opinion, torpedo a grenade launcher up the CIA and FBI's asses. Stop the gang-stalking, mentally deviant, twisted assholes, and let's restore America. Again, give us back our land, our freedoms, our life, our liberty, and all the joys that we are entitled to here in America. Again, get the FBI and the CIA and all their twisted cohorts out of here and out of our lives. Give us back our freedoms. And again, God bless the great Jefe, Donald Trump, and God bless America.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins, Mr. Martinez, and Mr. Baldwin.
Prentice Jenkins, publisher, City Life newsletter, activist since 1991. I'm here to speak about this issue. Wayne Spindler. I'm a colleague of Wayne Spindler, and I know Wayne Spindler is not a racist. But the one thing that I didn't look at is I understand what he's saying here, but I never looked at it in terms of how the President Wesson looked at it. He doesn't know Wayne Spindler. He doesn't know he's a racist. I mean, he doesn't know whether he's a racist or not. So when he called President Wesson a Herb equals nigger, I had to look at it in terms of how he looked at it. If I didn't know this man and he said Prentice Jenkins equals nigger, I'd be ready to fight. So I understand your situation now, sir. He's not a racist. You scared the hell out of him because I just talked to him downstairs. He said, I ain't coming nowhere near you. Get into mediation with him, and trust me, you'll get your concerns taken care of.
Mr. Baldwin. Ms. Richardson, I don't have a card on you.
Hello, my name is Omar Baldwin, and today I would like to talk about peace. Peace on earth is it's not a myth anymore. It's a possibility now. Everybody is letting me know that they're ready for peace, some sort of peace society, a change in our government or something. And what I usually say is, hey, our democracy is pretty good. Maybe you guys should run for office or something, you know. And they're like, well, who really wants to run for office? And I'm like, well, I want to run for office one day, you know. And they're like, well, what would you run for? I was like, probably like Congress or Senate, or try to be an assembly member or a council member, just anything, you know, because if you don't run for your government, then, you know, someone else will. And then that's like someone else driving your car, you know. You got the car, you got the Ferrari, but now you got to drive it. Drive your Ferrari.
Thank you, sir. That concludes general public comment. Madam Clerk, what business is before this body?
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Posted and referred. Do we have announcements? If I can get all members to rise. If everyone in the council chambers would please rise for adjourning motions. If all in the council would please rise. I'm looking to my right side, which is Mr. Rue's side, Mr. Weezar's side. Now I look to my left, Mr. Harris Dawson.
Chair and members, we ask the council to adjourn in the memory of Miss Bobby Ray. She suffered with multiple sclerosis for over 50 years, but did not let that stop her from raising a family and having a productive career. She worked at the Los Angeles Unified School District as a teacher and counselor, retiring as a head counselor in 1986. She was a lifetime member of PTA and a key participant in the Los Angeles Education Panel for the Institute to Help Slow Learners. She was also a very active church volunteer, leading the ladies' ministry and Bible school. She was a longtime resident and activist in Manchester Square neighborhood. May she rest in peace.
Thank you. I'll continue on my left side. I do not see any other adjourning motions on the left. Members, this council meeting is adjourned.